There comes a moment in your travels or everyday life when you walk into a room, look around, and instantly feel like every eye is on you. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you're the only person in the entire space who doesn't look like everyone else. That uneasy spark of hyper-awareness, that subtle tightening in your chest, that quiet internal voice whispering, "You definitely stand out here." That's the experience millions of non-white people know all too well in certain parts of the United States. Today on Virtual Travel by Brian, we're breaking open a conversation that rarely makes it into relocation guides, moving checklists, or glossy travel brochures. It's the truth behind the top 10 white states where you will feel completely out of place. A deep dive into the top states with the highest percentage of white residents, where diversity, cultural differences, and racial demographics are not just statistics. They shape your comfort, your visibility, and the entire minority experience in ways that can't be ignored. This video exposes the quiet tension of states where diversity is almost non-existent, the sociocultural shock that hits you the moment you arrive, and the environment so homogeneous they've earned a place on the Whitest states list. Whether you're exploring relocation options, studying travel education, or figuring out where to live in America, this countdown is your wake-up call. So stay locked in, because once you hear number 1, your perspective on America might shift completely. Let's get into it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Number 10. Kentucky. Kentucky is the kind of place where you can drive for an hour, see 3 barns, 1 gas station, a church every 7 minutes, and not a single person who looks remotely like you. Statistically, the state is about 87 to 88% white, comfortably sitting in the top 10 whitest states in America, according to national demographic data. And with black residents making up roughly 8% of the population statewide, you might assume representation is decent until you realize most of that 8% lives in exactly 2 places, Louisville and Lexington. Step outside those cities and the math starts doing something strange. Suddenly, you're not 8%. You're more like one of one, the only one, or the first one they've seen since Obama's first term. Kentucky has a vibe, and that vibe is, welcome to the past, population, mostly white. Rural Kentucky feels like a long, rolling museum exhibit where the primary artifacts are pickup trucks, family-run diners, politely nosy stares, and country music playing at a volume that suggests it's the state anthem. You can go into a restaurant, sit down, order your food, and watch the entire room try to figure out whether you're passing through, relocating, or part of the FBI's diversity program. The cultural differences become very obvious very quickly. Need a fade from a black barber? Good luck. Craving jollof rice, curry goat, or fufu? Better pack a cooler. Looking for a community where your cultural references don't require subtitles? You might be driving a while. People in small-town Kentucky aren't necessarily hostile, they're just not used to seeing black newcomers. The result is a combination of stares, extra-long smiles, awkward icebreakers, and the classic question every minority hears in low-diversity states. Where are you from? No, not there. Where are you really from? Translation: you're not from this zip code, so why does your melanin say otherwise? Now let's be fair, Kentucky isn't the same everywhere. Louisville and Lexington are the social safety nets of diversity here. They have universities, cultural pockets, black neighborhoods, and the kind of variety that reminds you America actually has 330 million people. You can find community, hair care, cultural food, and people who won't stare at you like you're a new species. But venture out into eastern or western Kentucky, and representation drops faster than your phone signal. This is a state where you can build community. It just might involve GPS, patience, and a willingness to drive 40 minutes for anything culturally familiar. Kentucky sets the tone for this list, a place that's not dangerous, not unfriendly, but absolutely a location where you will stand out every single day. Number 9. North Dakota. North Dakota greets you with open skies, endless fields, and a demographic profile so consistent it practically deserves its own Pantone color. The state is roughly 88% white, placing it squarely in the very white, extremely uniform, don't expect a lot of variation category of U.S. demographics. And before you ask, yes, the black population sits under 4%, and in many counties, the number is so tiny statisticians have to zoom in twice just to confirm it's there. This is oil country, farm country, wide open space country, where the culture revolves around working the land, drilling the land, or surviving the winters long enough to complain about the land. Walk into almost any small town bar and you'll hear two things: country music and the sound of you being the only non-white person within a 30-mile radius. Whether you're grabbing groceries, hitting the gym, or attending a local event, you won't just stand out. You'll be the unofficial ambassador of all things melanin. And here's the interesting part. A lot of North Dakota residents have simply never lived around Black people, Asian people, Latino people, pretty much any group outside the white majority. So when they finally see someone who doesn't fit that template, their curiosity turns up like the volume knob on a tractor radio. You'll get the long looks, the extra polite smiles, the "what brings you here?" interrogation, delivered with the same tone they use when they spot a moose wandering into town. To be fair, there are places with a bit more color. Fargo and Bismarck offer pockets of diversity thanks to universities, refugee communities, and younger populations. Walk around those cities and you might spot other people of color, though you'll still notice the overwhelming whiteness compared to national averages. These cities feel less like you're on display and more like you're part of a small but visible community. But once you leave those areas, it's back to open roads and demographics that look like a gallon of whole milk. Rural North Dakota is where you don't just notice your difference. You embody blackness to people who may have never interacted with a black person outside television, sports, or trending TikTok videos. The state isn't unkind. It isn't hostile, but it is homogeneous in a way that makes every non-white person instantly visible. In North Dakota, you aren't blending in, you are the diversity. Number 8. Iowa. Iowa looks peaceful on the surface. Quiet towns, open roads, and sunsets that feel like they were designed by a photographer with too much free time. But beneath that calm is a demographic reality that earns it a solid spot on this list. Around 89 to 90% of Iowa's residents identify as white, depending on the measure, placing it firmly among the top 10 whitest states in America. And while black communities do exist, they make up under 4% of the population, with most of that representation clustered in only a few metro areas. Step outside Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, or Iowa City, and the scenery changes fast. Suddenly, it's just you, cornfields, more cornfields, and then a surprise, even more cornfields. You could drive for an hour and feel like you're on a movie set where the casting director forgot to include anyone who isn't white. Drop by a small-town diner, and you might be the first non-white customer they've served since last year's county fair. The vibe isn't necessarily hostile, but it's definitely aware. There's that gentle but unmistakable, "you're not from around here, are you?" energy, even if you were born 2 states over. In Iowa's rural regions, people won't hesitate to give you the long, thoughtful look that says they're trying to figure out your entire life story before the waitress even brings the menus. Cultural variety is limited too. Looking for a black barbershop? Might need Google Maps and a tank of gas. Hoping to find African food, Caribbean flavors, or a multicultural grocery store? Be prepared for a mini road trip. For many non-white residents, Iowa is a place where blending in simply isn't an option. You're noticeable even when you're minding your business in aisle 4 of the supermarket. Now, to Iowa's credit, Des Moines and Iowa City offer more diversity, with universities, immigrant communities, and a bit of cultural variety. There's actual representation, a few places to get your hair done, and neighborhoods where you won't be counted like a rare bird sighting. These cities create pockets of balance that make the state feel less uniform. But the overall picture? Iowa is still one of those places where you instantly recognize how few people look like you, speak like you, or share your cultural references. It's calm, quiet, and safe, but also overwhelmingly white. Number 7. Idaho. Idaho's reputation is simple. Potatoes, mountains, more potatoes, and a demographic breakdown that looks like it hasn't changed much since the 1970s. With about 90% of residents identifying as white when you include white in combination, and around 80% identifying as white non-Hispanic, Idaho easily earns its place among the whitest states in the West. And the black population sits under 1%, making it one of the lowest in the entire country. Translation: you will stand out in Idaho like a red shirt in a snowstorm. The state prides itself on its rugged outdoorsy vibe, ski slopes, lakes, hiking trails, and wide-open landscapes where the nearest neighbor might be a deer. It's a very leave-me-alone kind of culture, and not in a bad way. Idahoans genuinely enjoy their personal space. But when it comes to racial diversity, the state didn't just opt out. It never showed up to the meeting. In many towns, you can go days without seeing another black face, Asian face, or Latino face. Not only will people notice you, they will remember you. You become the black guy from the supermarket, the black woman at the gas station, or that very polite black family that moved in last spring. There's also a complication Idaho can't pretend away. Certain regions have been known to attract far-right and white nationalist groups over the years. This doesn't mean Idahoans as a whole are extremists. It simply means you might encounter environments or histories that make you do a slow, cautious 360-degree scan before stepping too far into a rural county. It's less, I'm in danger, and more, let me make sure I have enough gas to get back to civilization. Now, Idaho isn't one big monoculture. Boise and a handful of college towns offer more progressive pockets and a little more diversity, just enough to make you feel like you're not starring in your own National Geographic episode. You'll find some community, more open-minded folks, and places where people won't treat you like a rare exotic species migrating through the state. But statewide, Idaho wins the award for places where you will absolutely be noticed, not because people are hateful, but because they simply aren't used to seeing many non-white residents. It's beautiful, scenic, and peaceful, but for minorities, it's also unforgettable in a very different way. Number 6. Montana. Montana gives you scenery so stunning it could make a grown man cry, and a racial demographic so uniform it could make a statistician nod in approval. With over 90% of the population identifying as white when counting white alone or in combination, Montana sits comfortably in the "we're still waiting for diversity to arrive" category. The largest non-white group is Native Americans, especially near reservations, but the black population is well under 1% statewide, so low that spotting another black person can feel like a rare wildlife sighting. Big Sky Country doesn't just describe the landscape, it describes the sheer space between people, towns, communities, and especially minorities. Long stretches of open road, ranches, mountains, and more sky than you thought existed. You'll see cowboy hats, flannel, and trucks so large you question whether they need their own zip code. What you won't see very often? People who look like you. For black travelers or potential residents, Montana creates a fascinating experience. You're both a celebrity and an alien at the same time. Walk into a small mountain town grocery store, and you'll feel every neck turn like someone just announced Beyoncé was doing a pop-up concert in aisle 3. People may smile too big, ask questions too fast, and behave like you're their first cultural exchange in years. Many locals mean well, but their point of reference for black people might be limited to athletes, musicians, and whatever Netflix series they binged last month. Microaggressions come dressed as compliments. Curiosity disguises itself as friendliness, and a simple grocery run turns into a social experiment. You'll meet folks who genuinely want to show you they're cool with it, even if their version of cool comes out as awkward jokes, outdated assumptions, or nervous oversharing. Now, Montana isn't completely without pockets where you can exhale. Missoula, Bozeman, and Helena offer college town vibes, more transplants, and a sprinkle of diversity. But even in those cities, the white non-Hispanic population still sits above 80%, and you'll notice it everywhere, from the classrooms to the coffee shops. Statewide, the message is clear. Montana is breathtaking, quiet, peaceful, and overwhelmingly white. Representation is limited, and you'll feel it the moment you step out of the airport or roll into a rural town. The sky may be big, but the diversity isn't. We're halfway through the countdown. If you are enjoying the video so far, hit the like button, subscribe to Virtual Travel by Brian, and ring the notification bell for more informative content. Let's get back into it. Number 5. Wyoming. Wyoming doesn't just whisper low population, it practically shouts it across the empty plains. As the least populous state in America, Wyoming has more antelope than people, and more people named Cowboy than people who look like you. With about 92% of residents identifying as white when counting white alone or in combination, it ranks among the whitest states in the country. Add the fact that the black population is under 1% statewide, and you've basically entered an environment where you are not just visible, you're statistically significant. Walk into a gas station in rural Wyoming, and the energy shifts instantly. Not in a hostile way, but in a you're new around these parts kind of way. The state's culture revolves around ranching, rodeos, pickup trucks that could tow a mountain, and communities so small you could learn everyone's name by lunchtime. For a black person, navigating this landscape means standing out everywhere you go. The diner, the grocery store, the local hardware shop, or even a national park filled with tourists who still somehow aren't as surprised to see you as the locals are. Wyoming embodies the friendly but cautious vibe. You'll encounter people who greet you with warm Western hospitality, and others who give you the lingering side-eye, like they're still deciding whether you're lost or undercover. Diversity isn't just low, it's practically non-existent. You won't find many black-owned businesses, cultural centers, or social networks. Even finding a black barber feels like hunting for a unicorn. Now, not every corner of Wyoming feels like a demographic desert. Head toward Jackson Hole, and it's a different world. Wealthy tourists, international visitors, outdoor enthusiasts, and people who've seen enough diversity to not stare like you're a rare geological formation. For a moment, you almost forget how overwhelmingly white the rest of the state is. But take a 2-hour drive back into the interior, and that brief sense of anonymity evaporates faster than water in the high-altitude sun. Wyoming's beauty is undeniable. Mountains, prairies, wildlife, and skies so big they look photoshopped. But for non-white residents or visitors, the social landscape sends a constant reminder: you are the diversity. Not part of it, not one of many, just it. Number 4. New Hampshire. New Hampshire greets you with postcard-perfect towns, crisp air, and a demographic profile that basically screams, we've been white for a long time, and we're committed to the lifestyle. With over 93% of residents identifying as white when counting white alone or in combination, and about 87% identifying as white non-Hispanic, the state proudly ranks among the least diverse in the entire United States. And the black population sits around 1.5 to 2%, with multiple counties dipping below 1%, so good luck blending in unless you are a snowflake. This state has that classic New England vibe: winding roads, wooden houses older than your ancestors' ancestors, and towns so quiet you can hear leaves making career decisions. Add in the famous live free or die spirit, and you get a place where independence is celebrated, personal space is sacred, and cultural diversity is more of a weekend visitor than a permanent resident. For black folks, the experience hits quickly. Walk into a local fair, a town hall meeting, or just stroll down a main street, and your presence becomes more noticeable than the moose crossing signs. You're often not one in a crowd. You are the crowd. New Hampshire doesn't offer many black barbers, black churches, Afrocentric grocery stores, or cultural hangouts. Outside of Manchester and Nashua, good luck finding a place where you don't feel like the plot twist of the day. And let's talk about the people. Not hostile, not hateful, just unfamiliar. Many lifelong residents haven't had deep interactions with black people, so their version of friendly curiosity can sometimes come out sideways. Expect microaggressions delivered with a smile, compliments that sound suspiciously like stereotypes, and jokes that make you question whether you accidentally walked into a time machine set to 1989. Still, New Hampshire is peaceful, safe, and scenic. It's just not built with representation in mind. If seeing people who look like you matters, whether for comfort, culture, or community, this state announces its limitations immediately. The whiteness isn't subtle, it's not gentle, it's present, loud, and consistent. Bottom line, you will feel it. In the stores, in the neighborhoods, in the silence of the forests. New Hampshire doesn't hide its demographic reality, it embraces it. Number 3. West Virginia. West Virginia doesn't ease you into its demographic reality. It hands it to you up front with a firm Appalachian handshake. With roughly 94% of residents identifying as white in white alone or in combination measures, this state consistently ranks among the whitest in the entire country. The black population sits under 4% statewide, and in several counties the numbers are so microscopic they barely flicker on demographic charts. In other words, you will not be blending in. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. This is the heart of Appalachia. Mountain towns tucked between hills, coal history etched into the land, and pockets of deep rural poverty that haven't changed much in generations. You're not walking into a diverse, bustling metropolis. This is a world of hollers, church-centered communities, and families who've lived on the same plot of land for 60-plus years. Many residents have simply never lived around black people in any meaningful way, and you'll feel that the moment you step out of your car. For a black traveler or newcomer, West Virginia delivers instant hypervisibility. Walk into a diner and the silence hits before the menu does. Step into a gas station and you'll get the full processing new data stare from people who genuinely didn't expect to see anyone who isn't white. That doesn't automatically mean hostility. West Virginians can be warm, welcoming, and sincere. But it does mean you'll encounter everything from heartfelt small-town kindness to outdated language that sounds like it got stuck in the 1970s. You might even get comments that make you wonder whether the speaker has ever met a black person outside a TV screen. Culturally, the state offers very few black-centered spaces. No large black communities, no abundance of black barbershops, no Afrocentric grocery stores popping up on every corner. Most black residents are clustered in a few urban pockets, and even those neighborhoods are tiny compared to national standards. The rest of the state is overwhelmingly, consistently, relentlessly white. The real takeaway? West Virginia offers zero anonymity for minorities. This isn't the kind of place where you can disappear into a multicultural crowd, because the crowd isn't multicultural. You will be seen all the time, everywhere. Number 2, Maine. Maine is the type of state that delivers beauty with a side of demographic consistency. So consistent, in fact, that it practically deserves an award. With about 95% of residents identifying as white when counting white alone or in combination, and over 90% identifying as white non-Hispanic, Maine sits comfortably near the top of the Whitest States in America leaderboard. The black population floats between 1.6% and 2%, which means representation technically exists. But in a practical sense, you might not see it very often. This is a state defined by lighthouses, lobster rolls, pine forests, quiet towns, and entire scenic coastal drives where you may not encounter a single person who shares your skin tone. Outside places like Portland or Lewiston, diversity drops faster than the temperature in a Maine winter. You can walk into a restaurant, a small-town festival, or even a state park and instantly recognize that you are, without question, the cultural plot twist of the day. For black travelers or newcomers, the experience is a blend of peaceful landscapes and social hypervisibility. Yes, the state is gorgeous. Yes, it's safe. But the whiteness is unmistakable. In many communities, the residents' primary exposure to black people comes from television, sports, TikTok, or whichever celebrity was trending last week. That dynamic shows up in the way some locals stare a little too long, smile a little too brightly, or behave like they're not entirely sure how to react to seeing a black person outside a TV screen. There are visible African and African immigrant communities, particularly in Lewiston and Portland, and those pockets offer genuine cultural anchors. But compared to the state's overall population, these communities are tiny. They help, but they don't change the broader reality. In most of Maine, you are noticeably different from almost everyone around you. Cultural amenities that many black Americans take for granted, barbershops, diaspora cuisine, community churches, neighborhood hubs, are limited. You might find a few, but not enough to blend your life into a familiar rhythm. Most towns simply weren't built with minority communities in mind, and it shows. The bottom line? Maine gives you stunning coastlines, peaceful living, and postcard vibes, but it also gives you the unmistakable awareness that you stand out. Not a little, a lot. Number 1, Vermont. Vermont takes the crown, the trophy, and the entire podium when it comes to demographic uniformity. This state proudly sits at the top of every white states in America list, with mid-90s percentages of residents identifying as white and around 90 to 91% being white non-Hispanic. That's not just white, it's artisanal, handcrafted, locally sourced whiteness. And the black population? Just 1 to 1.5%, one of the lowest shares in the entire United States. On paper, Vermont radiates progressivism. You've got Bernie Sanders, mountains full of environmentalists, organic food co-ops, climate activism, and more flannel per capita than any place outside a lumberjack convention. It sounds like a liberal paradise. But the moment you start looking around, you realize the state's racial diversity index is running on fumes. If you're black, you're not just rare, you're practically mythological. In Burlington or the occasional college town, you'll find a sprinkling of diversity. Students, transplants, a few immigrant communities. Enough to take a breath. But step outside those areas into rural Vermont and your visibility skyrockets. Every grocery store, cafe, farmer's market, community fair, and random dirt road becomes an opportunity for someone to stare, double take, or decide you're their new opportunity to prove how open-minded they are. Politically liberal doesn't always mean culturally familiar. Many Vermonters fully support equality, justice, progressive causes, and diversity. In theory. But in practice, a surprising number have had very limited personal interaction with black people. That gap shows up fast. Black residents and students often talk about the delicate balancing act, loving the safety, the scenery, the nature, and the calm, while simultaneously feeling isolated, hypervisible, and occasionally treated like a walking, talking diversity initiative. And that's exactly why Vermont fits this video's title with perfection. It's safe, it's scenic, it's peaceful. But culturally, if you're black and you're used to diverse cities or communities, Vermont doesn't just make you feel out of place. It makes you feel like you've wandered completely off the Black American map and into a parallel universe built out of maple syrup and whiteness. So there it is. The top 10 whitest states where you will feel completely out of place. If this countdown opened your eyes, entertained you, or gave you something to think about, hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more thought-provoking travel and relocation breakdowns from Virtual Travel by Brian.